Okay, AP Language and Composition, welcome back. Today is part 2 of writing our synthesis essay. Today we're going to be working on 2 supporting paragraphs measured by 1 supporting paragraph with at least 8 sentences using the outline criteria. And then you're also going to have 1 paragraph that is a concession and refutation paragraph with at least 8 sentences using the outline criteria. Okay, so the only thing that you're doing today, 2 things, 1 supporting paragraph and 1 concession and refutation paragraph. I want to start off by reminding you or teaching you what a concession and refutation paragraph is. The goal is that I will demonstrate to you in my essay how to do that. So concession and refutation, what are they? Well, every essay needs to make an argument. At some point, you need to acknowledge the other side. Okay, so I know we've been writing our thesis statements and we have 3 points arguing either against or for a certain topic. But what we need to do is make sure we acknowledge the other side. Acknowledging differing points of view on your topic is called concession. Making concessions is important because they show that you understand both sides of the issue. Refutation is a little different, okay? You should never make a concession without following it with your refutation. A refutation is where you prove the counter arguments wrong, or at the very least, explain why you do not agree with it. Okay, so you have 2 choices. You can prove why it's wrong, or you need to prove why you do not agree with it. Here's an example. And I want to point out that I borrowed this information from this class down at the bottom. I made sure that I documented where I got my source, and on each slide that I use the information, I did document it down at the bottom. So Miss Lou's class on webbly.com is where I got this information. So here's the example. Over the years, many groups have argued that violent video games have desensitized teens to real-life violence, making them very likely to be involved in fights, school shootings, and other criminal activities. In my opinion, this stance fails to recognize an individual's responsibility for their own behavior and does not acknowledge that most teens are capable of telling the difference between right and wrong, reality and fantasy. When Grand Theft Auto 4, a notorious violent video game, was released, it sold 3.6 million copies in its first day of sales. Develop paragraph number 2. But those sales were not met with a corresponding spike in the teen crime rate. Green paragraph number 7. In fact, there is a far bigger connection between socioeconomic status and crime than there is between violent video games. Okay, so here's the concession. The writer of this information here states that over the years, many teens have argued that violent video games have been desensitized to real-life violence, making them more likely to be involved in fights, school shootings, and other criminal activity. That is your concession. And then the author of this says, in my opinion, this stance fails to recognize an individual's responsibility for their own behavior and does not acknowledge that most teens are capable of telling the difference between right and wrong, reality and fantasy. And then he goes on and he backs up that information with evidence, okay, from 2 different sources. So, again, to remind you, when you are writing today, you're going to be writing a paragraph that is a concession and refutation, okay? And again, it's acknowledging different points of view on your topic, all right? Once you acknowledge that, you're going to follow it up with a refutation. A refutation is where you prove the counter arguments wrong, or at the very least, explain why you do not agree with it. And again, in this example here, the author explains why he does not agree with what society says in terms of violent video games desensitizing teens to real life violence. Okay? So now I'm going to pause here for a second, and I'm going to show you, show you my example and the expectations that you need to meet based on the outline. Okay, back to my sample synthesis essay. And now I'm going to demonstrate to you how I write my concession and refutation argument. Okay, these are the criteria that you need to meet. Okay, your paragraph should have at least 8 sentences. Your first sentence is going to be your topic sentence, where you choose one concept or word from the last sentence of your previous paragraph and use it again in a different way in this sentence. This sentence should introduce one of the reasons that does not support your thesis. Okay, so we're starting over here with my example, and here's my topic sentence. My topic sentence is, despite the major differences between the American and Jamaican school system, one could argue that they both attempt to produce one type of person. Okay, so my argument is that both the Jamaican school system and the American school system both want to produce one type of person. The second criteria is to write a sentence using a quote from one of your sources that takes the point of view opposite to yours. What I did was include just a little bit of information before I got into my evidence. So what I included was that one type of person is someone who is obedient and will listen as a result of the way that the school learning system is set up. Here comes my evidence. James Baldwin accuses teachers of the following. Societies really ideally want is a citizenry, mispronouncing that word, which will simply obey the rules of society. Okay, and he says that in his article, A Talk with Teachers, on page 679, paragraph number 2. So I'm going to include that in here. Talk with Teachers. Or actually, just need to include Baldwin's name, 679. In the Jamaican school system, the authority of teachers are never questioned. Classroom management issues are obsolete because of the authority that teachers have over their students. One could easily argue that as a result of the education system in Jamaica, it produces one type of person. Let me put that type of person. One could easily argue that as a result of the education system in Jamaica, it produces one type of person. This may be true, but Jamaican students have options. This is where my refutation is now coming into play. So I agreed that both the Jamaican system and the American system tries to produce one type of person, but I disagree with it, and this is how I make that claim. This may be true, but Jamaican students have options. If they are not interested in the school system, at 16 they can drop out and pursue other passions. The elite typically continue. They are not brainwashed into being a specific type of person. One could say that these are headstrong individuals, meaning despite what the teacher desires for behavior, they can continue with their own personality outside of the classroom. And there you have it. You have a paragraph that includes a concession, okay, me sharing the other viewpoint, and then a refutation where I explain it.